So now what we're going to do is we've just looked at the quarter beam buttock line, and among the most valuable lines in a boat, they're going to be the diagonals. And so the diagonals, they're running out at different angles, not exactly perpendicular to the hull, but sort of perpendicular to the hull. What they're really doing is they're running at an angle that is closest to what the planking is like. Because if we're thinking about bending the planking around the boat, even though the planks are not in a straight line as the plane of the diagonal is going to run through the hull, nevertheless, this is the closest thing to the planking. And since you actually have to build the boat by planking it, you want very much to know what these shapes are going to look like. So again, a diagonal is coming off of the center line, but it's coming out at different angles depending upon the shape of the boat at the time. So the diagonals are not parallel to each other. They're based on a judgment about where they need to go. I've gone ahead, and if we move back and I come towards the, I'll do it from this side, I come to the body plan. So you come to the body plan. What we see is the first diagonal that I put down is this diagonal right here. So we see the body plan, and we see the diagonal, and what interests me specifically about putting the diagonal here is that it's running through the strong curve of the transom. As that curve moves out from the center towards the widest part of the boat. So again, you have the body plan, we're looking at the transom, here's the transom shape, here's the top of the transom. We see this curve, and furthermore, I've had to do some editing, because that's really what this is, fairing the boat. I've already had to do editing with the load water line, and because of that, because I've had to make changes there, I had to make sure they would reconcile with the shape of the buttock line, which is with the diagonal line, which is nearby. So there's the diagonal line, and there is the load water line. And on the load water line, I've been making a series of changes that are going to encounter this curve shape. Sort of the hardest thing to master on the boat is these curves as they leave the transom and go forward towards the bow. So now what I did is I picked up the distances from the center up here where this diagonal originates, and I've located them on their specific stations. Transom, the stations aft, and then the stations going forward. And I'm now simply going to put the nails back in, and I'm going to bend this diagonal around those nails. And I put the cup right over here somewhere with the nails in them, I believe. Thank you. So I'm going to grab this cup, and I'm going to go back, and so this diagonal is in the stern. It starts here. It's coming from a center line on this side of the boat. The other center line down here is where we're going to be using the load water line, but the diagonals have their own center line, which is on this side, and so the distances are from the diagonals on each station out. So I'm transferring nails where they already exist for me to use, meaning ones that I actually did use on the diagonal. I'm seeing them out here, so I'm going to be, I think this one is probably here. So I'm putting these nails back down where it says it's the diagonal, you see? So we can see this diagonal's coming here, continues up here, and the next nail that I have is evidently on the inside here, and there's another one on the outside here, and there's one up at the front where it ends. Now the batten is not quite long enough, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you the aft side of this first. So essentially, when we're using a diagonal, we're turning the batten. I'm going to be turning it on this more curved. For this curve is not extreme, but I'm going to be turning it on its edge like this. And I'm going to basically be pulling it down to these positions. So I'm pulling this down, and I see there was a nail right here. There may have been one over here. Or maybe by the time this bent, it held it out, so we're going to go forward. I'm going to come forward to here, and I'm looking for where I may have used nails already on this. This one was on this side, that explains that. Okay, so here it is. Yeah, see, it's basically sitting on these with very little help.
So it looks like one nail is outside and one in. Well,
well, wherever you need them. It's okay to put the nails wherever you happen to need them. And right now, what I'm going to do is here I may have had a duck, because I remember I was using ducks or lead weights. But I'll go ahead and do what I would normally do is I would put a nail here, see, like this. Yes. So now what we see, we can't quite make it. The batten's not quite long enough, as you can see. If we were going to use a duck, it's fine. It'd be like that, okay? So look at this beautiful shape. And look at how it's going forward. And the wonderful thing about this is you can see how easy this line is going to be to plank. You see? And yeah. So we see this is the most curved part of the transom, but what we look at is the shape and how easy it is. And now that we finish looking at that for a second, once you get that, I'm immediately going to, once you have captured that shape, I'm going to release it, and I'm going to be pushing this batten in this direction up here, okay? I'm going to be pushing it up here. And I'm now going to I'm going to leave this duck over here so I can slide this. And I'm going to go up to the bow, and I'm now going to get this other shape. So this diagonal is ending here, you see? So now what we see, this guy's here. You would have, again, I'm going to just push this further forward and possibly use a different duck. Over here. And so the batten's not quite long enough, doesn't matter, as long as you extend it, okay? But again, what you see, if we extend it here, we see that this is pretty perfect, exactly the way it's sitting. It hardly needs any help at all, but that's what this shape looks like. So even now look at this shape and ask yourself, there's no steaming, anything required. This shape is just absolutely beautiful. So you can see that we know the planking was full length on Dolphin, and whereas you do not have to plank the buttock lines, you do not have to plank the load water line. They are not running in the direction the planking is running. If we look down at the boat, down there, we see that all the planks are coming out at an angle from the stem. And the same is going to be true for this boat. So this batten represents and assures the boat builder that they know what they're getting into. Assures them that they could use thicker or thinner planking based on these curves. And I should say, that has already been established, and we're probably going to copy the original widths and thicknesses, you see. But let's say you were just going to be designing a boat, this point, this would help you determine those thicknesses. So there you go. That's the explanation for the diagonal. And I don't know if you guys have any questions about the diagonal. But as I said, this is running down to the most important part of the boat, which is the great curvature in the transom. And that curvature running down through this curve of the transom down into the same neighborhood where I'm trying to rectify and get it to accord with the load water line, which is the very next line we're going to do. We're immediately going to move over to the load water line. The diagonal comes from the center line, is from here out. That center line in this view is right here, meaning the view of the body plan. The center line out. Distances are out at each station, and that's what this is representing here. This is called the expansion of the diagonal. So if this is the diagonal, the expansion means its greatest size. Its greatest size is when we were to see it perpendicular to itself. So there's the center line, you see? In this case, the center line out.
That is the diagonal line, right? So
yeah, this is the diagonal line, you see? So what we're saying is when you have this diagonal, and now you have this center line, depending which station you choose, okay? So let's say that it's a station near us, like station 5. We say, well, here's station 5 right here, and here's the distance from here to the center line is this distance right here, okay? That distance is the same thing as if I were to measure it from here at station 5. It's the greatest view. If we were to measure the diagonals out from the center line in this direction, the boat would be smaller. The diagonals would be smaller. So an expansion means it's that it is its biggest view. And that's what we want to see, because that's its actuality. Its actuality is that we would be bending wood along this curve, and if there was a problem going to come out of that, we need to know that at this stage. And you can see there's no problem at all. The boat is absolutely beautiful the way it was designed. So now, what I'm going to do next is our last line that we're going to look at today is we're going to do the load water line, and then we're ready to take a little break, huh? So I'm going to come and remove this batten. I'm going to set up the nails from that side. I'll come around there. I'm going to keep my mask off just for the sake of this video, but it can keep running. Am I right? You can keep the same video? Very good.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You know, because you're basically reconstructing the lines of this existing boat, would the next step be, rather than drawing water lines, draw more diagonal, so that when we draw the water lines, we know that they're accurate or they're fair?
The thing is, you need to, one needs to pick any particular line that clarifies the situation at hand. So, as you'll see, I didn't pick up a diagonal on the boat. There were no diagonals on the boat.
Right.
I did, however, pick up their water line. And that I have to stick to as closely as I can. And I found significant problems with that, given the problems I have just picking up that line. So we'll see when I so I actually started with the load water line. I don't have a diagonal yet. I'm using the diagonal to verify something I'm curious about, which is when I make corrections on the load water line, what will guide me? And what will guide me, the most valuable thing that will guide me, would be the diagonal in that area.
Sure.
That would be the most valuable thing. So I'm going to pull this up. And then I'm going to move this to the load water line position. I'm going to come around that way, and I'm going to recommend you come around the other way. We hope whoever owns that car will turn off its alarm system. I guess one should always ask the question, is that my car? And I don't know, because I've never heard the alarm go off on my hazard alarm, but I've never heard it go off. So. But it sounds like somebody's messing with it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the load water line is a very, very important line. And if we were to turn around and look at the blue and white line on this boat, the Loon, we can see where it defines what's underwater, and that's everything blue paint is underwater, that's the load water line, and then above is the freeboard, it's what's sticking up above the water. On this boat, we know because the line was cut in, was scribed in with a thin saw or a knife, so we know we were able to pick it up from the boat. And therefore we were also able to pick up its widths. And that's what we transferred. And this is the most critical thing, because it's bound to have errors because the boat is distorted. So coming back to Rick's question, like what guides you, and what guides you is called the neighborhood. Like in that neighborhood, I ran into a problem. I wish to resolve that problem. I will show you the problem I ran into, because you'll see it once I put this down. Once I see the problem, I say, well, which other line could help me with that? Could it be the buttock line in that area? Could it be the diagonal? Now, the diagonal I chose for a very simple reason. The water line is the only thing Dolphin gives to us. But if I see an error in it, the best way that I can correct the error is to use the most reliable of lines, which is a diagonal. So it's very specific to the problem at hand. And in some cases, it will be the buttock line. Yeah. That's the reason I use the quarter beam, because you'll notice the error that I was talking about is also they're all in the same spot. You'll see as soon as I put this down, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Why I was forced. See, the thing about lofting, you go with what it's telling you to go with. See, because it's basically telling you. And you'll see very quickly, because when I put this down, you'll see exactly the problem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to especially start in the back end of the boat, because the problem is more back here, okay? So I'm going to take the hammer, I'm going to put the nails back in first, including the one at the end, because we'll eventually move it up here. But for now, I'll probably only be able to bring this batten to station 2. And I'm looking for any points I've used on the outside. Here's one right here. And then lastly, this has this beautiful shape. I just love the shape of the way this stern ends on here. So here we are. By the way, it may be easier for you to observe the errors that I found. One of them, there's probably an error in my measurement. It's almost, I'd say it's a full inch off. That's a lot. Okay, that's a huge error.
Whoa.
See? Yeah. But it's very unusual, because most of them, they're much closer. This one is like almost a half an inch off. This one was a half an inch or so off. Okay? Now what is that about? It's about either the location of my pattern. These are very accurate, these station lines. I'm holding this piece of wood in place on the boat, knowing I can fix things in here. When you see a boat that elegant, you can right away assume that builder, designer, knew what they were doing. And I will follow our tradition knowing what they were doing. You see? So I'm not worried at all because I know I can do that. You see? So I'm putting this guy up here for now. I'm coming down here. I'm going to be giving it some space so that I can now push this out. I'm going to stay on this side because that way.
So you're always pushing.
No, because it's going to move. Look, see? It's going to move.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm bringing this down here because I know this is going to move. And one of the first points I'm going to put in will be right here. Because I'm looking at a trajectory, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to, this one has a nail here. I'm ignoring that. Why am I ignoring that? Because for sure, the ones that are really reliable, they all stacked up very, very well. And
So this is like curve fitting.
what's that?
That's like curve fitting.
Yeah.
Fitting a curve to the.
Yeah, so you see here's, what we know is that the designer and the builder, they would have always had a fair lofting, okay? For sure they would have had it. I used ducks on this also, so probably I had a duck over here, you see? Okay, so what you can see is, I'm going to come this way so I don't disturb what you're doing.
Sure. I want to see the line. How fair it is. You know.
Yeah, so basically you can see the line and you can see the necessity. If we look also at the hull, the wonderful thing is the hull does we have a sense of its shape when we look at it, because we're lucky we have the saw marks on it, and even if they were an inch or more off, this would be like a layered thing. It would still have fundamentally this kind of shape. Like this has no hollow, for example. It could easily have hollow in some boats. The important thing is that as we come up to, there's some very interesting things going on this side. Is there were several places, I'll show them to you. They include this guy at station 6, and station 6 is over here. It went outside of, you see? And then if we look at which one am I relying upon the most, we could say, I guess, that it is station 5. Because 5 perfectly allows front and back to resolve itself. And so what I'm doing is I'm saying, all right, you know, here's the amounts. See, the amounts of this change. And even though this looks like a lot, I'll bet you anything if I go back and measure this accurately,
so this
it has
is
to be
the actual measurement.
Yeah, this is sort of the greatest error we have, and I think it's an error of my measurement, and I'll tell you why. Because the boat at these points is very hard. You not only have the distortion, but you have the particular way that you're holding this thing. But it's not a problem because you're not using just this line. That's the whole point. You're not using only this line to discover the error. You recall we started out with the buttock line, and we started out after that, just the last time before this, we were using the diagonal. So now take a look at why the diagonal would be so valuable. What I'm saying to you is the biggest change I'm making is at station 6. We go to the body plan. Here's station 6 right here. Notice where it was. Notice where station 6 was, because you can still see the line.
Okay.
Notice station 6 where I'm showing the correction. Look at the distance here, the 1 inch, but it's not as much as you would think, because if I measure this way, do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
But if I see that big of an error, I need a friend in the neighborhood. That's where this guy came around.
I see.
This guy is going to verify for me this diagonal. There's no way I can cheat this one.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if this one is fair, meaning fit, beautiful line, full line.
So what does the diagonal give you? Give you this point here?
The diagonal gave me this point here.
Okay.
And remember, this section was going like this.
Yeah.
Okay? And so this is a new one that I have yet to do, but I'm gonna be doing the same thing throughout. But fairing requires, notice what I've gone after. Let's call it the crisis spot. Is 5 correct or is 6 correct? Maybe I would have found out that 5 is wrong. Okay? But if I hold it there, it doesn't look good anyway. You see what I mean? So you're saying in and of itself, which one looks better? Second point, treat it as though you've made an error by bringing in the most useful line and force that line. Since you have control over diagonals, you can have 4 diagonals, you can have 8 diagonals. It's up to you. You're creating the diagonals wherever you want them. So I'm putting a diagonal that's valuable. Why is it valuable? Because I'm also trying to find out about how this very curved tumble home transom is going to line up with these other shapes.
Is this the waterline that
The
we are?
waterline we're talking about is here. Do you remember there's boot
Yes.
and there's load waterline? Now the boat down there has this shape on it, but we are sticking to what we now know has to be closer to the original weight.
So this point is what you get from the waterline then?
Well, now we
Load
have to,
waterline?
yeah. So you see what happens is that you have a section. What section is it? It's section 6. I go to 6. Here's 6. Look, 6. 6
Yes.
comes down. Here's 6. 6
Yes.
comes to here. 6 was here.
Yes.
And even though it seems like a huge amount, once we get down here and we see this angle, we find out it's not such a huge amount. You see?
Yeah.
It looks like it's impossible.
So
But in
then,
fact, it's not impossible.
so then you correct it from here to here,
Based
Correct.
on the diagonal.
Yeah.
and based on waterline, right?
What I did is I
And this
said
is-
I would like to
this is diagonal.
have the water line come here. I haven't drawn this line in yet. I haven't drawn this in yet. I've merely drawn this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So I draw this in, and then what I do, and by the way, you'll notice there's another one that's been done, and that one is, what is this guy? 4. See, so 4, which is at the other end, this is this one here. 4 also has a problem. So I have 2 stations that have a problem. And you can see 4, I guess, was here, because 4, I think, comes in. So if we look at 4, we see that yeah, it actually comes in. See? Right, that one would have to go out, wouldn't it?
I see.
Or is that one coming in? I think that one.
This was
Going
the
out.
water line here.
Oh, yeah. So that one was. They're both coming in.
Coming in.
Yeah, they're both coming in.
Which means that
Yeah,
5 would be.
yeah. So that means that this one was here. See, so that one is 4,
Yeah.
and the one we're talking about is this one.
Yeah.
You see, so this is this guy here is 6, and it goes out. You see,
Yeah.
it's going out to here.
Yeah.
This one is coming in, so you can see you have a problem, and this is a very important thing to understand. You see, lofting is very simple. You say, where's the biggest problem? What if I didn't have a diagonal? What would I have done? I would have said, I'm going to go ahead and put a buttock line right here, or near here, because I'd say, okay, I could still have one. You don't have to be on the transom. You can have other buttock lines that end off of on the inside. See, so I could say 6 12, 18, 24, and even from there 30. Like I said, I'm going to put a buttock line at 30 to see what that very outside of the hull shape looks like. But it's not going to be anywhere as accurate as a diagonal. And since you have full control over where those are located, you should use them to best advantage.
Lawrence, can I go behind you?
So do you see how how beautiful the line is? You see? So 4 is here, and 3 is here, and what we're going to see the reason we don't see that yet is because I'm not up to the end yet. See? Yeah. Okay, this is 3, 3, and 4. You see? So this one here is right there. See? This is 3. So 3 we haven't. 3 we have some correction on 3 too. So 3 says here's 3. So we go to 3. We say where's 3? 3 is here. Look at 3. 3 says you can't go there. You can't be here. For one thing, it's ugly. See, look, you can even see it's ugly. That's another thing you say. Is it ugly? Is it not ugly? So it says come out to here. See, come out to here. Isn't it true? The same diagonal helps me again. Look, see?
Right.
The same diagonal is absolutely helpful to me again. So I find all the crises. I say, where's the neighborhood of these crises? It's right
and then you use buttons to derive these lines?
Yeah. Very simple. See, like mostly I'm using this guy. Mostly I'm using this. Okay. Just a piece of wood.
Okay.
Okay. And in some, like the transom, I broke this batten using the transom, so I used one of my fiberglass battens. This one right here. So sometimes I will use like a sail batten. I'll cut some sail battens up and I'll use the sail batten. You see? So, but mostly I'm using wooden battens. Okay.
Right.
The position 5, is that what you measured off of the existing boat? Or did you move that out too?
No. That's one.
That's
And I'll tell you what really compelled me to follow that one was that there were some other intermediary points that were in the same distance. Like if you look at my notes, you will see the readings from the notes, and there's confirmation with this. But the main thing to see is that this is 5. What's so important about 5?
It's sort of midship in a way.
It is the midship section. So that means that your displacement and everything is going to be based on 5. Agreed?
Right.
So 5, it has to be really convincing as a shape. Like as a shape, I see it coming from here. 5 is out here. It's coming out here, and I see that if 5 were to have been brought in, it's not quite as logical actually that I could use this lower water line.
I see.
I wouldn't have the stability there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a number of reasons which together compel me to trust 5. But they do go back, to answer your question, they go back to the measurement from the boat. Right. Now remember, the boat has planks, as you may recall, that are tweaked here and there. So my patterns are not exact. They are exact enough that even if we didn't save the boat, I would have come close to here, but not as close, because I had the luxury to drive down in my car, take my pattern again to say, what, did I do that? Of course I did that. I saw an error that big. I said, what's wrong? Maybe my measurement is wrong.
I see.
And I went, because I had the luxury, I went back down the road and I said, well, it was definitely better than what I had, but I said, I have to use the other lines to solve this, okay? So you must trust you cannot use just water lines. You must be willing to use diagonals especially, but you must use the lines that you can also pick up off of the boat. I can't pick up a diagonal off of the boat. I'd have to drill holes in it everywhere to do that. You see what I'm saying? So, but I'm convinced this is very accurate to what we've been doing. You see, it follows the shape. If I put the transom I have the top end of the transom. It fits the transom that I've drawn here. See? So what we've done today, we've talked about the Roy Cano, a wonderful guy who moved to Sausalito in the mid-1970s. He got this boat from Ralph Flowers. And Ralph Flowers was a boat builder, a very prominent guy that all of us knew. And Ralph Flowers had made the rig for the boat, and Darr of Arques himself, who Roy Cano worked for many years, Darr of Arques built the original cabin, and Darr of Arques gave him a great deal of information about the boat. Roy Cano came into this shop on January 8th, 2020, and he was highly concerned they were going to cut up the boat up in Petaluma. And my students and I, we listened to his account, and also Master Mariners had Bob Rogers happened to be here that day, which is astonishing because they fund these projects. In any case, we were compelled to go look at the boat. We saved the boat, we brought it to Sausalito, and now we're lofting the boat. Our goal is to finish lofting the boat, get it absolutely fair, get a set of lines available to the public, and then hopefully to build the boat. It's a perfect boat for a youth program. So that's where we are on the project. And today is what? Is it the 16th?
16th.
Today is May 16th, 2020, and our objective would be in the first 6 months to have done all of the things we promised that we would do. Thereafter, we'd like to save the existing boat rather than trying to repair it, because it's beautiful as it is, and it would be completely destroyed if we repaired it. We'd have to replace the whole thing anyway. So that way you have the original boat, and then you have a new one that's built by the students at some point.
The information is on the blackboard, right? So that's the
information of the basic proportions that we saw. It was built by, we believe, by Minati Pascanucci. The name is the Dolphin. It's 21 foot 1.5 inches long. It has a 6 1/2 inch beam, 1.5 inch beam, 17 foot draft, etc. Freeboard of 15 inches, etc. Okay,
Cool.
These are rough measurements still. You know, there may be slight variations but not the length. The length and everything would be precise. You see.
right.
Okay. So, all right. So we've done our duty. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we can relax for a little bit and probably grab some food or